And what a game it's likely to be. Mad versus SK to kick us off here, Vedius. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Looking forward to casting the... We're kind of going back to our roots here, Medic, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Mad... We have a new player in the top lane for SK as well, and yeah, I'm really interested to see what Mad bring out along with SK, because we've obviously had an extra week break, which means the teams have had more time to prep, more time to plan out what strategies they want to be bringing out to this week. And as the analyst desk was saying, Mad Lions, this is still a very important game for them because XL is hot on their heels and only one game back.
Yeah, and as they said on the analyst desk, XL still have to play Fnatic, Origin, and G2. But you look at Mad's lineup, and they've still got Misfits tomorrow, Fnatic and OG in the final week. So you really can't afford to be dropping games versus teams like SK. Otherwise, XL, who have a favorable head-to-head versus Mad, are looking for that sixth spot.
Yeah, they certainly are. So when we look at Mad Lions, I'm thinking of what they want to bring into the draft is conveniently we are going to be jumping. This team, I feel, has been experimenting a little bit over the last weeks. I think early on into the split, people started to realize that if you ban away LeBlanc and if you ban away Lee Sin, Mad's champion pool starts to get a little bit narrower, especially on the champions that Humanoid and Shadow can succeed on. Now, Humanoid does have information, so there are still champions available that they can play, but over the last 2 weeks, I feel like they've been trying to expand their pool, trying to...
It was Arome who was the key carry for the Mad Lions. He played Gangplank, went 4-0-4 on it, absolutely dominated the game. So we'll see if he can do that here again, of course, playing into Venta. Venta's first game in the LEC. The final lock was the Victor. As you said, Zoe is a little bit subject to being counterpicked or matched up poorly in the mid lane, and Victor can do that. You know, you put down a gravity field where the Zoe's jumping out, you can get some extra damage down, you can kind of lock her down a little bit and trade quite effectively.
I would say it's one of the safer picks into Zoe, mainly can't really trade super effectively against death rate if she ever are. But primarily your goal is to just play farm, play scaling, play defensive, and I think that it synergizes quite comps that have for themselves. They're kind of reliant on the Gragas to set up engages, but they also have a lot of zone control with the Victor W. You're also going to have Set as a champion who obviously creates a lot of space his team because of how wide his W is. And I think that SK are actually set up quite nicely for teamfight. I just don't think that they have many easy lanes to play around in the early game. So I'm expecting a slow early game defensively, whereas Mad, I think they're going to be looking to go hard, go fast, primarily playing through the mid lane, looking to set up invades and try and put as much pressure on the enemy jungle as possible.
Do have a pause coming out of the early game there, and we'll be getting back on into the action as soon as we can. Now, Vedi, I believe you are going to just be requested to take a back seat for the rest of this cast, as we're going to bring in Ender. Your microphone was cutting out just a tad, and so Ender is going to sub in your place. Hello, Ender, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing all right. It feels like a true in-house right now. We're just swapping the casters all around. But happy to be in here and break down these comps because we do have some fun stuff that Vedius was bringing up. The first thing that I would like to point out upon getting back into this game is that it is going to be a fasting setup down bot side. You can already see Kaiser has gone for this a little bit unorthodox Trundle pick. He's going to be rocking the TP and the press the attack too. So I'm expecting to see him pick up the majority of the minions early on in the game and, you know, really try and snowball gold onto himself early.
I'm wondering about the Trundle pick, because we saw it early on in the draft. We were wondering whether it was going to be jungle or support, and then, of course, when the Olaf was locked in, we saw it was definitely going to be a support Trundle. But do you think it's specifically matched up into this Tahm Kench? Do you think that Mad Lion said, okay, into Tahm Kench, we can play the Trundle because you have the Subjugate, because you have the extra sustain in the lane as well?
Yeah, that's exactly the case. I think because when the Trundle came out, we'd seen Gragas and Tahm Kench already picked, and Trundle into Gragas doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because, you know, Gragas these days is always going to be building full AP. But in the Tahm Kench matchup down bot side, not only does he have the ultimate, which is going to be super, super powerful against the Tahm Kench or even the Set later on, but also his pillar is super effective against Tahm Kench when he's trying to save an ally, because if you just put that in the middle of the lane, it's like unmissable CC, and no matter if Limit's trying to eat up his AD carry or not, it's going to be really hard to, you know, escape from that sort of situation if there's a jungler involved as well.
It works so well with the Glacial Augment as well coming out from Kazi, because if you get pillared, you're slowed. You then get autoed, you're slowed. It's so difficult to ever get out of that lane, ever get out of that position, because constantly you're just going to take harass after harass after harass. And you can see Kazi and Kaiser already stepping up in this lane, trying to push Crown Shot and Limit back.
Yeah, and this is sort of what you expect with the fasting Senna. Like, Karzi is just trying to buy as much space as he possibly can for his Trundle at the moment, because if Karzi can sort of 1v2 zone away with those high-powered auto attacks and the slow field as well, Kaiser can walk up, can get virtually every single minion, and unless you're really playing against like double ranged bot lanes, you should be able to do this in the early stage, and it's one of those things that makes this a pretty powerful strategy at the moment.
Well, definitely working out well for them early on as they pushed up this lane. We'll see how much of that CS Crown Shot can get underneath the turret. He's taking TP, knowing he's likely to be harassed in this lane means that he can get back into it a little bit easier. But of course, it does leave you vulnerable to ganks because you don't have that heal, you don't have that defensive summoner.
Nice little move there from Shadow as well to walk inside the enemy jungle and steal away the blue buff. This is something you can do, of course, on this matchup, thinking that Gragas was going to be on the top side of the map. And as we get into a little bit of a pause right now, you can already see that he has bought that space for the bot lane to be pushing up safely.
Yep, makes it very, very easy for the Mad Lions bot lane. I want to talk a little bit about that jungle pathing, because it's not very often you just see a straight 3 buff like that. Usually there's an invade into a ward, or someone gets caught out early on or harassed out early on. What is it about the Olaf into Gragas matchup that let him do that so easily?
Well, the nice thing about Olaf into Gragas is like he's just going to win virtually any 1v1 fight that the two like run into each other and go ham. Like, you're just going to win that. But there was a very early ward on Trick's red buff that actually saw exactly what Trick's pathing was going to be. Shadow started on his blue buff side of the map, while Trick had started actually on his wolf camp. So he had left his blue buff up, and the second he was seen on the red buff as his second camp of the game without a blue himself, that's when Shadow knew that he could go for that type of pathing to invade with pretty much relative safely.
That's definitely worked out for him early on. He'll be a whole camp up over Trick. And Trick hasn't been the best jungler at sort of early on in the game, gnawing back at a lead, right? He's not always the most proactive early on. He doesn't really get too many ganks off. So I'm really interested to see what Trick does on the Gragas, running Predator, looking for what we would usually expect to be quite early ganks.
Yeah, and in his defense, in this matchup, I think you are expected to take a little bit more of a back seat in this type of a game. If anything, he would look for, one of those early recalls to pick up the Predator boots, and probably like bot lane would be his focus with how far they're pushing up. But because of the invade from Shadow and the deep ward that has been placed inside of Trick's blue buff quadrant of the jungle, that's not going to be too realistic of an option for him.
Venter winning out trades in the top lane. Big minion wave here being built up. Arome struggling a little bit with the set early on. It actually looks like Trick is coming up here for a dive. Spotted on a ward, perhaps just trying to force Arome out, and Arome gives him the respect, gives him the time of day, and flashes out early on. This is really difficult for that Nardo, because do you TP back into this? Are you going to risk it? Actually, instead of going back, he's just going to walk back to the turret.
Yeah, so Arome did end up losing his flash there, and he made a calculated risk once he saw Venter and Trick back away from the minion wave. He said, hey, they're not going to stick around. He's pretty safe to walk up and get those last hits. But this is a little bit of a difficult situation for Arome to be in, but not entirely unexpected. A lot of people see this match and it's like, oh, Gnar has the range advantage into the set. It should be easy. But Gnar, in mini Gnar especially, gains range throughout levels that he gets in the game. So early game, he's actually pretty low range and always going to be in target range of Set's W. So because of Set's W that has such strong poke / wave clear, the sustain he gets via his passive as well, this is a pretty easy lane for Venter to try and control early on in terms of lanes.
You can see Trick went into his bottom side jungle, basically had nothing there as Shadow had just stolen away the entirety of that bot side, and then was spotted on a ward as he went over to the Razor Beaks as well. So Mad have basically total awareness of where Trick is. Trick thinks he's relatively safe because he used the Oracle's alteration, but didn't spot out the ward at his Razor Beaks, and it makes it actually very hard for Trick to do anything with this Predator boot gank.
Yeah, right now, Rome is the player on Mad's side without the flash up, so Trick was very likely looking to set up another gank around this side. If you look at the minimap as well, there's a big wave that's starting to push in towards Ventair. Ventair is allowing the wave to come in, so now there's a full team-wide response from Mad Lions. You have Shadow and Humanoid both rotating up towards here to try and buy Rome the safety he needs to be able to push that one in, and of course, Trick, seeing Shadow on a ward himself, just says, hey, I have to give it up, and sort of relinquish that advantage.
And obviously, it's great to see this sort of level of coordination in the team. You know, we wondered whether the little bit of extra time prepping for this week would have helped Mad. I think this is something we've seen from them a few times this split, but they haven't always been consistent in making sure that no man is left behind in the early game.
This one is looking good for them right off the bat, and I actually want to draw my attention towards mid lane right now. You can already see Humanoid building up a pretty sizable advantage here on the Zoe, continuing to pressure in towards Genax as well, and as long as he can control this mid lane sort of on his own, that is going to open up options for Shadow to look for, you know, repeat moves into the enemy jungle. I'm going to be looking around that 7-8 minute mark when Trick's blue buff is going to be respawning. Whether or not Shadow wants to make a play could be a very good point for him to target on the map.
Well, right now, Shadow's blast coned over. Trick has the support of his bottom lane, but Humanoid, as you say, pushing in mid, comes across. Shadow now hits 6. Leaky cover wobble isn't going to connect, but Crown Shot perhaps caught out just a little bit. Can't flash away, of course, because he'll be flashing straight into the jaws of defeat. There's the Devour coming out from Limit as Mad Lions continue to push in. Aren't going to find any kills, but they force SK out of the river.
And this should net them an Infernal Drake as well. With the poke going down, low mana on Limit, SK are going to seed this one. You look at SK's comp, it's very clear they're not looking to get too frisky in the early game and go for any of these types of engages. So Mad Lions will be able to force them out of the river and pick up the Infernal for themselves. Mad Lions, with the Olaf in the jungle especially, are looking to get those first 2 Drakes of the game as quickly as possible, because it can put you in a very good position later on, especially to look for that soul farm.
It really just puts the enemy on the timer, right? Like, the sooner you can get the first 2 dragons, the sooner we're looking at the Soul Drake. At the moment, that was taken at 7 minutes, 12, 17, 22 is the Soul Drake point right now. And that's assuming, obviously, the dragon is taken immediately as soon as it comes up. If you can get those early on, it really makes it very difficult for SK, because they'll be looking for 1.5, 2 items before they really want to fight. And if Mad Lions can bring the win condition earlier than that, then SK have to take disadvantageous fights.
Ooh, so this is interesting. Coming back onto the map, you'll actually see Karzi ran into mid lane while Kaiser is taking solo EXP down bot side. Now, with Humanoid off the map, Karzi is able to pick up some minions here, but I'm curious, does he stick around? Because remember, Kaiser has teleport. Kaiser, in theory, could stay bot side as Mad Lions look for some sort of a Rift Herald play themselves. They have 2 teleports at the moment, so they're just going to try and really push the game forward, extend this tempo that they do have into yet another Herald, another neutral objective to pick up.
Yeah, you can see Karzi just help push out the mid lane, and now Humanoid has it underneath the turret. Shadow on Olaf can very easily solo out any of these neutral objectives early on, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Really nice stuff there from Mad, playing the map well and taking these early advantages as much as they can.
And they've just been containing Trick inside of his own jungle, right? You know, Trick had the one move up top side when he knew he was getting invaded on the other side of the map and was able to get a flash, but now you'll notice Arome's flash has returned back up here. So with this, you know, early pressure mid-jungle 2v2 that Vedius was talking about in the draft, Mad Lions have been able to make some really nice moves here so far in the early game, and I'm going to be watching them really try and push that in the next 5-10 minutes as well.
I think it is important to note that SK are still pretty much even in gold. You know, there's a 300-400 difference between the 2 teams. A lot of that will come from the fact Crown Shot was able to get a plate down towards the bottom lane. No other plates taken so far this game, as far as I can see. So he actually has about 1,000 gold lead over Karzi. Now, of course, very difficult to equate a fasting Senna with a non-fasting Aphelios. But overall in that bottom lane, say 5,500 versus about 6,000 gold. SK have a very slight lead.
Yeah, we can do the soul check too. Karzi has just hit 40 souls, so looking very good. And turret plates will be going down on the top side of the map as well. You can see Shadow starting this one off, smacking down the turret, and they're going to wait all the way until the very end to place the Rift Herald. Of course, that doing true damage is going to nuke that tower down, if they even choose to put it down, because right now they're just running away with the rest of SK on the approach.
Limit always has the ability to react with an Abyssal Voyage. My question I was asking internally was, as we see an engage, Humanoid getting caught out, takes one flash, has one stolen away with Stealthy, taking Venter from the top side. Unstoppable used there by Shadow as he goes low, but the Shadow, the ultimate, the showstopper from Venter won't be enough. Shadow has to go down to the back side as the Dawning Shadow comes out. Now, Arome trying to build up that Mega Knight. Venter very low, dodges out to the undertow as Kaiser's joined the fight. Humanoid coming in from the side as well, looking for a paddle star, only connects onto Genax, and all of SK get back underneath their turret.
Yeah, Humanoid still looking for skill shots, but SK will have to back up here. Now the Rift Herald does come through, so with the teleport up from Kaiser on that support, if you can call it a support, Trundle, as well as the global ulti there from Cars, was able to turn the tides in that fight to make it look very, very solid now for Mad Lions. They pick up the first turret of the game, and because SK tried to contest them up on the top side as well, SK can't respond at all. So 2 minutes ago, Medic, you were saying not that bad for SK. It's 200 gold difference. Well, now that's almost 3,000 between these two.
That's just snowballed right out of control here for SK. Mad Lions in total control of the game, and Crownshot has got himself an Executioner's Calling to try and deal with the Trundle healing. Not very often you see that first item on an AD carry, I'll be honest, but as a support main, if the AD carry is trying to itemize against my healing first up, I'd be pretty happy with that. Feels like you've made quite an impact on the game.
Yeah, that's gonna delay Crownshot just a little bit right here. Of course, he's looking at quite a bit of healing on the other side, but you really hate to see that when you have a Victor in the mid lane without much itemization to go for. He just upgraded his passive item one time, and the rest of his team not doing too hot either. So this is going to be a long time, I feel like, before SK really are going to pack a punch in these fights, especially when you see, the full Warrior enchant completed for Shadow, some lethality coming through from Karzi, the Kaiser support, quote-unquote, Trundle now has Sunfire as well. So this Ocean Drake fight that could break out, yes, SK have great vision around it, but itemization-wise, it should be a massive win for Mad Lions.
I totally agree with you there, and Mad Lions are just so far ahead in this game. You can see Trick looking for something here on the bottom lane as the root does land on Crownshot. Crownshot has his Gravitum out, trying to see if he can get Kaiser, but Kaiser's so tanky already. Like, that support Trundle is sitting well over 1,000 health. Like, that's basically impossible to kill. You just don't have the burst at all from SK.
Yeah, it's funny because we have the term for fasting Senna, but what do you call the duo partner? Because it's really not a support if you think
I call it the Christmas dinner support, right? Like, it's
Christmas
you just
dinner
eat everything you can. You've got turkey, you've got ham, you've got roast potatoes, you've got mashed potatoes, you've got bread sauce, you've got cranberries, you've got chocolate. I'm trying to think of other things like
chunky support.
Brussels sprouts, the chunk.
Perfect, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, and Kazi is, obviously giving up farming for Lent at the moment on this Senna. They're going to push in that bottom lane. Already taking 2 plates out of it. They'll be looking to add to that number. So far, Mad Lions have taken 5, 6, 8 plates. And before the 14-minute mark, only 2 on the side of SK as they have a 3v3 in the bottom lane. Moonlight Vigil coming out. There's the root as well as Limit looks to step forward, but Shadow's waiting. Anticipating perhaps an overstep here from SK.
SK are going to end up backing up here, and this is where we run into one problem, I think, in SK's comp that you could, bring up. When they are trying to make plays themselves, it's really hard for them to force because you have a Tahm Kench support, really you're just trying to play off like a Felios Gravitum gun or perhaps a Gragas Body Slam. In the meantime, Mad Lions have all the tools they could ever need to force, and here they go.
Crownshot has to use the flash away. He was used by Limit as well as the Dawning Shadow comes out. I think Mad are just trying to force the plates right now. The more you can get, obviously, the better it is. The plates fall off. I believe they got that one before the turret placing did go over. 14-minute mark. And a 2,500 gold lead here for Mad. They've been a team of comebacks. The comeback kids is what we were naming them, Ender. But at the moment, it's SK who need a comeback in this game because Genax is using his ultimate underneath the turret. He's just getting dived. He's done. That's first blood. 15 minutes it took. But we get one quickly to follow afterwards. And Venter wants to introduce Humanoid to one of his friends. He says, "Hi, mate, here's Trick." And SK are able to answer with a kill of their own.
Medic, it took us a lot of time to draw some blood finally on this map, but it's still looking very good for the Mad Lions right here. Finding that dive to the bot side tower. But Trick is in the area and maybe trying to force.
Venter goes in with a haymaker. Trick Does have the ult, has flash as well, but doesn't want to go into the curse of the Black Mists. And that's the power of Senna as well. Like, we talk obviously about her infinite scaling, her range, the fact that she doesn't need to farm, the fact that she has a heal, the fact that she has a root, the fact that she has an ultimate that's cross-map. We'll see this dive once again, but Senna's so powerful because she can also make her teammates invisible. It's basically impossible to fight against that.
She can do pretty much everything, of course, Humanoid.
She doesn't have a dash though, Ender. She has no dash.
Oh, that's true, but she takes flash and then it's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that by that logic, you could say everyone in the game has a dash.
Well, not everyone takes flash.
Okay, who doesn't take Tryndamere? But he's got E. Shaco,
Yeah.
but he's got Q.
Singed. There you go. But even he probably takes flash these days.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think you might be onto something. No, I would like to point out, though, that Rift Herald has respawned, though, and Mad Lions continue to look to dominate around the map. And now that we actually have the mountain map, as it were, like, the game could not be any better for Mad Lions. You have all these extra walls, right, for Arome's Nard to try and slam people up against. Humanoid can extend the range on his sleep. It's much harder to get full vision inside your jungle because of those weird side angles, so all the pick should be much, much easier for them. So Humanoid gonna have a field day with this one the later we get.
Yeah, still hasn't completed that first item, but he's well on his way, trying to get the sleep trouble bubble here as Crown Shot dodges away. Uses that on Watts and gets gobbled up by Limit, only to be thrust straight into the jaws of defeat. Shadow diving turrets, Mad Lions as a 4-man pack here, just roaring their way to victory.
Yeah, they're just running straight through the jungle saying, hey, can we pick up any monsters in here, any picks, any of that? Get it all. And now they're with that knowledge, they're going to be able to go back and through the wave and mid, pick up a Rift Herald too. So now SK must fight back on the other side. Trick is here. Limit has the Abyssal Voyage to jump in too, but they have to pull the trigger fast.
I mean, Arome doesn't have any rage building up. Here comes the Abyssal Voyage as Mad are looking to answer with that teleport. Dawning Shadow comes out. Arome healed up, still shielded. Ben 10 diving under the turret, hits him with a haymaker, and now Kaiser's out of position. SK trying to dive onto him. He jumps forward and jumps down onto Trick. That's going to taste a little bit like wine, but I'm sure he'll be a drink that he is well welcome for. Kaiser gets an answering kill in the bottom lane.
Oh, SK just can't catch a break, right? They're forcing down bot side, but with all the globals, the TP on Kaiser too, it ends up being a 1-for-1, and it's not even in time for the Drake to be spawning. So we're still 25 seconds off of that. They're gonna have to reset before they get back on towards the map. Arome will of course have time to respawn and be there too. So like, SK, they had a window where they could see something on the bottom side, but some quick thinking from Mad Lions was able to stop that immediately and just maintain or even grow their lead because, of course, on the other side, they got a tower and a Rift Herald on top.
Yeah, and you can see SK now wildly pinging over towards the Dragon. They know they need to start fighting for it. They need to successfully fight for one of these. Shadow is on his way across. The Mountain Drake has spawned. As Kaiser and Kazi clear out just a little bit of vision, but Humanoid is solo pushing in the bot lane. That turret's not long for Summoner's Rift, and SK, even with all 5 players here, I'm not sure how easily they're going to answer this. They're looking for Humanoid. He's got 2 flashes, one on the Spell Thief, one as a Summoner, lands to sleep onto Venter, and now he's looking for the flash. Arome's coming in as well. He's just hit Meganar. Trick there on the front line. Limit coming across. There's the flash from Humanoid, but that's the Spell Thief's one. He's still got one in reserve. Arome trying to get forward. Doesn't have the flash to go in with the Gnar, with that ultimate, but SK just have to retreat. They're forced out of the river. They're forced out of the bottom lane, and Mad actually might even look for the mid lane push here. They're sending 3 players across there to try and take out the turret. And SK just a little bit too slow on these reactions.
Honestly, I think Mad Lions really want to fight. That's why they didn't immediately start up the Dragon.
Sleep.
They don't want to pick you off when you're in front of the Drake.
The sleep lands from long range, and Trick is already below half health. Shadow and Mad will get their 3rd Dragon of the game. The Rift Herald is used in the mid lane to make sure that turret fell. And even with the Dragon resetting, it's like, excuse me guys, you took me out of my house, I need to go back in. They're still able to be taken there by Mad Lions. 3rd Dragon of the game, 19 minutes in. It's sole point ender as we get towards that 24-minute mark.
Yeah, the Drake was almost free. I don't know why he turned around. He could have just kept going.
Sweet release. Freedom. Couldn't quite get it.
Yeah, now Mad Lions looking really, really good here. The whole situation around that fight was really interesting as well because Humanoid looked like he was overextending down bot side, but at the same time, I think Arome was actually stacking his rage on the Krug camp. So it was very clear that Mad Lions were telling Humanoid to overextend because he had all those flashes, with hopes, of course, to try and set up some sort of a play. And even though it all ended up fizzling out at the end, I think these are some pretty clever ideas that Mad Lions are trying to bring to the table, even if they don't always work out perfect.
And the thing is, SK as a team, like, you don't have to have your plans work out perfectly to beat them at the moment. Like, there's a reason they're sitting 2-12 near the bottom of the standings, only beating out Vitality, right? They haven't had the coordination they would have liked. They haven't had the degree of synergy they would have liked this split. And a lot of their players will be looking at Summer and saying, okay, we need to step up so that we show that we've earned our spot, right? And it's a discussion that they were having a little bit on the analyst desk before the game. But Mad will be looking at playoffs. They can still technically get 4th spot. It's very difficult for them to do, but it's a possibility. They would need to win out, and they need other teams to drop games, obviously. But a win here really keeps them just that, at least a win ahead of XL, which is vital for the Mad Lions.
Yeah, Mad Lions in this position, they're like, they have their eyes set on playoffs, and they need to get wins, all the confidence, prove themselves going in towards that, because even, you heard on the analyst desk, people still aren't totally convinced on them or XL right now. So the stronger you can show up in these types of games, the bigger statement you can make, always going to be good, as already they're on a very good pace to try and close this one out quickly. We were talking about at the 6-minute mark, how we could have a 22-minute soul point Drake, and well, yeah, it's going to be a 23-minute, so 24.
And 24. I know maths is hard, but adding 21 and 3 shouldn't be that difficult for you.
Well, it's not. It's 2,115 plus 244. That's how I like to think of it.
Yes, that's how time works. We've converted time into a decimal system, and that's how we're going to do things from now on. Anyway, SK going to get some vision around the Baron. Perhaps a steal, perhaps something last chance for them over there. But for now, Mad Lions will have total control of the game. They're just waiting it out. Let's look at where they are in terms of items. Black Cleaver complete on Shadow and on Arome. Humanoid now has the Ludens, building up towards what appears to be a Banshees, and the Manamune, and I think that's going to be an Umbral Glaive from Kazi.
Yeah.
Very much on its way.
I mean, if you just tick over to the gold as well, you can see, like, the gold is pretty much dead even between Crown Shot and Kaiser, the two people that were farming in the bot side, but it's almost a 2,000 gold lead for Karzi on top of the souls he's just been accruing over the game. Another time for a check-in. He's at 80 souls now, so that is a lot of bonus range. This guy is very, very strong, even if the itemization wouldn't necessarily convince you that way.
I was trying to do some mental maths, and I'm not gonna say what I was trying to do out loud, Ender, but the fact that you have a Spirit Visage, Sunfire, and Swifties on Kaiser, and no player on SK actually has a second item complete. I guess you could say Genax because he's upgraded his Hex Core. That's a difference you don't tend to see. Like, I've played a lot of support games, and I don't think I've ever been the most built player in the game.
Yeah, maybe but it's not support versus support here.
That's
it's
true.
Support versus Christmas dinner next to the fasting
the Chonker.
Senna,
Yeah, I forgot.
The Chonker.
With the Chonker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I forgot that we named it that. But yes, perhaps I need to convince my AD carries in solo queue, which I'm playing a lot of at the moment, that they should give me more CS. Trick here, looking for the dive underneath the mid lane turret. Isn't going to be able to find too much. The redemption comes out. Venter has a flank position, perhaps looking for a showstopper. Trying to stop Mad's chances, but in a 1-3-1, when all you can do is the 5-man squad looking for an engage is get a single tower, that's not too encouraging a situation.
I mean, it's not encouraging, but you take what you can get at this point in the game, right? Like, full power to them. They saw Mad Lions splitting up into a 1-3-1. They said, hey, let's attack mid lane with 5. They get it themselves right before this Mountain Drake spawns. Now, Mountain Drake is sort of like the final line in the sand, because I feel like if you give that up to
That's
Mad
a really
Lions,
tall line in the sand, by the way. I mean, technically, geologically, you're entirely correct. Geologically, you're entirely correct. It's just two big lines in the sand that have hit each other thousands of years ago and built into this mountain. Do you know about tectonic plates? Did they teach you that?
I do know about tectonic.
Are you old enough if you've gone through the high school class?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you studied the planet. I thought you were more of, study the people type of guy.
Study everything.
Seems like a waste of time to me, but what do I know?
Well, I mean, yes, it was. Yes. Let's be honest. Okay, Shadow, the line in the sand has been erased by Mad Lions pretty quickly here. They will take the Mountain Drake, they'll get the Soul. Of course, Mountain Soul, not the most impactful, gives you that shield, makes it harder for you to be burst down, but who on earth on SK is actually going to be able to burst anyone right now anyway, so...
Yeah, well, they're just trying to wait for items right now. Gen X went for the Luden's Echo on the Victor here, just for the cooldown reduction too. Of course, has 2 upgrades on the Hex Core as well, so will have empowered his Q and his W, I believe, if I double check. Yeah, so still a ways off when you compare him to Humanoid on the other side, of course, who's just going to be looking to, poke with these bubbles over the walls. And as soon as Mad Lions start, focusing around the top side of the map, around the Baron, they can start clearing out that vision. Because we're on a mountain map as well, like Humanoid is going to be so comfortable to throw out all these bubbles and be able to use the terrain to sort of block enemy vision of him. It becomes much harder for SK to face check into their own side of the jungle, which is already going to be hard, but it becomes even more difficult as Mad Lions focus around that objective.
And all that a win like this really does for me, Ender, is excite me more for the third game tomorrow. You've got Mad versus Misfits. It's the game of the week. I'm actually really hyped for it because at the moment, those are the two teams that are like really challenging to be the best rookie team in my opinion. Like you've got Shadow, Kazi, and Kaiser all on Mad who are rookies. You've got Denick, who's a rookie, B-Boy, who only joined the league this split, although isn't technically a rookie, I've forgotten the Misfits jungler's name. How have I forgotten this?
Razor K?
Razor K, that's the one. And Razor K on Misfits, and I'm just really excited to see those two teams butt heads because it could be a battle for 5th or perhaps even 4th spot, depending on how things play out.
Well, yeah, the interesting thing about that game, too, is, right, like, coming into the season, I thought Mad Lions actually had a decent amount of hype around them, especially, like, the bot lane of Karzi and Kaiser, whereas no one thought Misfits were going to be good.
And can you blame them?
And were insane, right? They came out to such a strong start, and while that has slowed down a little bit, like, a lot of people still have really high opinions of the team.
Limit half HP as Kaiser puts it down the pillar. Limit tries to flash across the wall, but
What?
Kaiser takes him down.
Wait, that's not...
Yeah.
What? Wrong way, buddy. Anyway, Mad Lions still on the chase.
Yeah, I took a quick trip back to the fountain. Wanted to go home. I've been playing a lot of, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, and that Tahm Kench reminds me a lot of the main frog character in that. And he likes to live in water, and there's a little bit of water around there in the jungle, so perhaps he was just trying to get home in like a swampy area.
Okay, so Tahm Kench is the River King. He was not flashing towards the river here.
That's
I don't know what the Ori lore is, but...
Well, the Ori character is like Qualolock, which I agree is not as good a name as Sir Thomas Kench.
Sir Thomas Kench. You put some respect on the name, you know?
Yep. You can see here, Limit gets hit by one bow. Now, what I do like for the second bit is the pillar comes down, and Humanoid's like, okay, easy bubble target. We know exactly where he's going to be. And then the flash away was...
It's like, he flashes away from the Zoe. Like, I understand. Like, he is thinking, I have to flash away from the trouble bubble. He was not thinking 2 steps ahead, which was, once I flash away from it, do I have any chance of survival? Which, had he asked the question, the answer would have certainly been no. Unfortunately.
So just don't flash. Don't flash in those situations. Save flash for the next fight. Maybe you want to flash and gobble up Crown Shot or save one of your carries. Now, we do have 2 major objectives coming up on the map. Baron, of course, has already spawned. That's been up there for about 8 minutes. Mad haven't played around it too much, but there's an Elder Dragon as well. 2 minutes, 19 seconds on that. And Mad, I mean, they could control either side. Looks like at the moment they are pathing up towards this top side, giving Humanoid a bit of safety as he pushes up in that top lane.
Yeah, the thing is, Mad Lions don't necessarily have the swiftest Baron, of course. You know, a lot of people talk about that when you go for the Senna, especially with the lethality fasting build. You're going to be pretty slow on that objective, so they haven't felt the need to start that one up. And they also keep sending Humanoid up into a side lane while the rest of the team comes in forces, which is really interesting because it can put him in position for really nasty, bubbles coming in from the corner of SK's screen, but doesn't put him at some amount of inherent risk. If he is walking over vision and doesn't have really almost perfect vision of the enemy team, they could be waiting in some of those brushes. So he does have to play a little bit carefully around that when he is splitting off from the rest of the group. But now should just wait and try to burst people. Holy moly.
Yeah, that's not fair. Shadow and Kazi actually reset the Baron just as bad, so they're going to have to restart that. But you can see Venta is actually coming across here for SK. Kaiser from the bottom side looking to catch out someone. There's the pillar. Lands on Crown Shot and Limit. Both stepping forward. Genex on the wrong side. Flashes away. Crown Shot already down for half HP. His Limit is about to fall. The thick skin won't save you for too long here as Mad pounce and get another kill. And that should be the Baron for Mad Lions.
Well, Limit really wishes he has the flash right there because Mad Lions put a target on his back and completely forced him out of there. This is just nothing SK can do, right? Humanoid sitting inside of the jungle getting insane damage down. Even though Mad Lions have a quote-unquote slow Baron, right? Like, Shadow's lost some HP, so he's got the massive attack speed, and no one can get even close to this. So Mad Lions has just put on a masterclass on how to control these neutral objectives all game long. They got 4 Drakes, they got both Rift Heralds, now they're going to get the first Baron in the game, and the Elder Drake too. They should easily be able to convert down towards that as well. So this has been a very, very clean game with not a whole lot of risk-taking from their side.
Yeah, and the power of, I've been thinking more about this Trundle pick. The power of having a Trundle instead of something like a Tahm Kench is his ability just to stand in the lane as well, right? Like Tahm Kench, usually if you catch him out, he's pretty much dead. But with a Trundle, you have the area of filth. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. You've got the pillar for safety, the mud pile, you've got the subjugate, so you can go for these fights. But SK are trying to make something happen. They're going for the Elder Dragon straight away. 3,000 HP left on it as they look for the steal. Here goes Olaf. It's taken by Trick. Can SK win the fight out of it, though? That's the big question. Ventez already down to half. Trick has to flash away. Shutdown's already gone down onto Shadow. As Mad Lions now in a 4v5 look to continue the chase. So Rome building up that Mega Gnar, is about 3/4 of the way there, but SK have been able to get in, get out, and get the Elder.
Yeah, really nice stuff there from Trick. Keeping his cool under pressure. Shadow came in and smited early. Trick was able to secure it in the end. So this will fend off so much of what Mad Lions are trying to do. We've seen them to replay one more time. Like, Shadow has the opportunity to come on in here, but it's also very hard to work against the combo damage of Trick. Early blue smite coming through from Shadow, which of course means the Trick is able to pick that one up. And with the Elder Dragon buff on SK's side now, well, the Baron buff not gonna have that much potency left, right? You know, SK are gonna be able to buy time, get a Rabadon's finished off, Crown Shot now as his Infinity Edge too, so you can start giving some consideration to SK's scaling options. Of course, they're not there quite just yet, but, you know, if they're able to stall this one out and then maybe put up a strong fight around the next Baron buff, that's where we could see the tide to this game turn.
So yeah, let's discuss that a little bit further, because scaling-wise, you know, I look at things like a Zoe, I look at things like a Senna, and I see good scaling on the side of Mad. Obviously SK, Aphelios, Victor can do a lot. Set doesn't tend to have the impact he would have early on in the later game, but would you have like an out-and-out winner when it comes to scaling between these two?
Hold that thought, because Venture's TP flanking in from behind.
Oh my god, here we go. Storming Shadow coming out, but here comes the TP flank. Humanoid, Banshees is pop. They're looking for the Senna. Can't down to half HP already, but he flashes away. The Haymaker's not quite going to connect. Shadow on his way across already. Ventez done. Humanoid takes him out. And Mad have been able to strike back. SK looked for a pick. They looked for a catch, but they couldn't quite find it. Humanoid jumping in again. The Sleepy Trouble Bubble doesn't quite connect onto Trick. Now with bound up minions, Mad Lions are going to be able to break open the bait of SK. And scaling doesn't really matter when Mad can just run through your base like this. They're looking for the win. Ventez still 30 seconds away. Mad have been pretty much in total control of this entire game, apart from that Elder Dragon stolen away from them. And there is the first Nexus Tower almost falling. Redemption used. The Nexus Tower goes down. SK still in that 4v5, still looking to stay alive in the fight. They have that Elder for just a few moments longer. But Mad can just reset. Use the Curse of the Black Mist to get yourself in and out of the fight as much as you want. Sleepy Trouble Bubble lands on limit. He's going to burn the flash to get away. Arome building up the Mega Gnar, almost going in. Decides against it, but Humanoid's now looking for that second inhibitor tower. We'll be able to get it with the rest of Mad. SK trying to fight them back. There's another sleep. Lands on Trick. Humanoid not going to dash forward. Battlestar comes out, goes forward, only hits a minion, but SK just can't defend. Janak put out his hand. As now the re-engage comes, Abyssal Boy. Trick in by himself. Venter's on the wrong side of this. Trick jumps in. Good barrel back. They shut down Karzvit. Is that enough? It's now a 4v4 as Trick falls as well. SK just dodge back. They have to step back. Mad basically get everything they wanted out of that push.
Yeah, Mad are able to pick up 2 inhibitors and a Nexus Tower off of that one. So really looking good for them, because honestly, like, we were in a situation where it was getting a little bit dicey, right? SK had picked up the Elder Drake. It was like, can Mad Lions actually close out the game? Well, SK sort of figured when you're playing against a Zoe Senna with the Baron buff, that siege, that poke is going to be really, really deadly. So they tried to force in with this flank from behind. The original cast to try and break the Banshee Veil on Humanoid, but of course the target was Karzi, but he's able to escape from there. And this again plays into the idea that SK, it's really hard for them to force fights, right? Like Ventier sort of teleporting in behind them, and then Limit doing the same later on was their best bet at making that happen. And if you can't pull it off perfectly, you're going to look really foolish as you try to run away from a Zoe and Senna that are just pelting you from a mile away.
Yeah, it becomes really difficult. And we've seen quite a lot of these comps recently where we get to sort of mid-game and it's like, well, how are they actually ever going to engage? How are they actually ever going to start a fight apart from using things like teleport, using things like Abyssal Voyage? And of course, when we get onto 10.6 in a couple of weeks' time, teleport has a lower cooldown later on in the game. It goes down to about 4 minutes, so perhaps that becomes more of an option. But right now, Venta is still less than halfway through his teleport cooldown, so you can't look for a flank like that again for a very long time.
Right, and that's where SK's comp is saying, hey, we want to play back more with an Aphelios, a Tahm Kench, a Victor. Like, we have the tools to play back, but not when you're getting sieged down and there's super minions inside their base, when there's Zoe hitting you from super far range. That's where you do have to make some hard decisions.
Yeah, you can see Shadow just running in from the side. Quick almost dies there just at the dawning. Shadow, whoever's going to come out, he'll be dead before it even arrives. Strick is down, GA pops on Shadow, but the fight continues as Venta goes in. Kaiser with the one knocked back. Moonlight Vigil coming out, but really not enough damage there from the Aphelios. Almost takes down Kaiser. Can't quite get it. There's the root from the Graviton, but now with all 3 inhibitors down, Mad Lions are on the chase. Just a second. As I believe Mad Lions are just closing this one out. And
just the Nexus left, yeah. Medic. I can take it from here.
There we go.
Stuff on the found. And it will be Mad Lions picking up every single last kill they can find before they pick up the win as well.
And there we go. They get the win. Mad Lions are victorious at the end of the day. Good stuff from them all round, obviously. And it really does build hype for the match they have against Misfits tomorrow.
I'm going to be honest. Mad Lions just made that game look so easy, right? Like from the very start, spotting out Trick on his red buff, Shadow was able to steal the blue buff, able to turn that into some pressure on towards that bottom side. Humanoid winning through mid just meant that they were able to pick up every single objective throughout the entire early game, and it never felt like SK were even in a position remotely close to trying able to be in a position to contest them.
And if you guys want to get involved at home, as we all are doing today, at LEC on Twitter is the place to be. Key Player of the Game nominees are Shadow, Humanoid, and Kaiser. And I know a bunch of them, well, they all did really well, in my opinion. I'm not going to say who you should vote for. I've had people complain about that in the past, Ender.
How dare you try to influence the vote?
I know. I'm just trying to make people vote for my favorites. But coming up next, we'll get some insight from Kaiser before Schalke 04 look to pull off an upset against Misfits Gaming. Here's a small preview.
Ground shot needs to get out. Flash forward from Amadagi, the face breaker for the pullback. Jumps down with the You're not.
Welcome back to the LEC stream, everyone. Laure here, joined by Kaiser after the Mad Lions victory on this 8th LEC week. Thank you, Kaiser, for joining me. Congrats on the victory.
Thank you.
You played Fasting Senna, and it seems to be a very strong strategy lately, and we've seen her paired with various champions. You just played Trundle right now. But what is the range of champion you need for Fasting Senna to be successful, and why was Trundle the good choice here?
I mean, the range of champions is actually pretty wide. Like, you can play any tanky champion that has like a bit of CC with her, like that can like kind of protect her. I mean, the best by far is obviously Tahm Kench, right? Because he has Devour, so she's really safe. But this game, like they picked him away, which was like smart by them. But we had something prepared for it. Like the Trundle pick is basically like a counter pick to the Tahm Kench, because he's really immobile. He's like super squishy when you ult him, and then like you can just kill him, right?
I see. And as a support, does this change the way you can see the duo lane? Like, how do you play as a support when you play Fasting Senna? Because you have to farm, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm like I role swapped from mid lane to support, so I can like still reasonably farm well. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely a lot harder. And like I have to kind of like teach Kazi how to ward and stuff. And like sometimes I catch myself going into the enemy jungle to try to ward, and then I realize, oh shit, I don't have a warding stone. But yeah, I mean, it's different for sure.
And when it comes to shot calling, I know sometimes support and jungle shot call in the early game. So does this change this side of the communication as well?
Yeah, I mean a bit. Okay. I mean, usually we all shot call in the early game. Like there's not really like one clear voice. So like we can just like push the wave together and then move into river. Like we usually me and Kazi, we usually tell like Shadow what to do, or like
I see.
We are usually like in a joint discussion basically.
Got him. I see. More about Mad Lions now. I know the players are so close, and every game counts for the team. So, what is your biggest focus going into these final games? 3 games remaining.
I mean, we don't really have one big focus. Like we just want to play all of the games cleanly, like as clean as possible. Like we know that like the playoff race is like really close. Like Excel is like 1 game behind us. So like if we slip up too much, then obviously they're gonna surpass us. So we have to be really careful. And now we have like 3 really strong teams remaining. So yeah.
Okay, 1 game at a time, let's say. And we often hear that some teams perform better in scrims than on stage. I know that situation can be tricky right now with the recent news we had. So, about the Mad Lions, is it easier for you guys to play in the gaming house rather than on stage?
Since we're like 4 rookies, I would say like we're still a bit uncomfortable on stage. Like the nerves definitely show sometimes. Like we play a lot more passive. We try to play more calculated. We don't play for kills that much. But in scrims and like at home basically, like we play way more aggressive. And we couldn't really show that this game. It was like fine aggression, but yeah, like I think playing from the gaming house is like a lot easier.
So last question here. I think we can expect some action on Match of the Week tomorrow against Misfits, right?
For sure.
What will be the focus point here? Which matchup?
I would say mid 2v2. Like I think Misfits mid 2v2 is like really, really strong, and we also have like a really, really strong mid 2v2. So I think whoever wins that matchup also wins the game.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you so much, Kaiser, for the interview. And we're gonna take a break, and we'll come back in 3 minutes for Schalke 04 against Misfits. Stay tuned.